My name is Stuart Rogel, and I'm President and CEO of the Tampa Bay Partnership. And I want to share with you some work that the Tampa Bay Partnership has been doing here over the last year. Very exciting in terms of developing a regional business plan that really speaks to how do we grow jobs and how do we address the workforce of the future in the 8 counties that make up the Tampa Bay region. And just to let you know, Manatee County and Sarasota counties, but Manatee County has been one of the first counties to join the Tampa Bay Partnership, is one of the 8 counties we're proud to call as part of the Tampa Bay Partnership in the Tampa Bay region. I'm going to spend a few minutes, because I have you, and I know I have a time constraint, Madam Chair, so I will be as timely as I can be. Just a few minutes to talk to you a little bit about the Tampa Bay Partnership and what we're doing to advance economic development and jobs in our community. And then we'll talk about the regional business plan and how it might benefit Manatee and the communities in Manatee. So if I can make this work, as I said, we're part of 8 counties in the Tampa Bay region. We run from Citrus in the north down to Sarasota on the south, east to Polk County, and all the counties in between. 8 counties, 6,500 square miles. That's larger than 4 states in the union. 4.2 million people in the marketplace, about 20% of Florida's population, a labor force of about 1.9 million, and the 14th largest U.S. media market. So it's the 14th largest market in the country. The reason why I share that is that you're part of a larger region, and there are strengths in numbers when we're involved in undertaking economic development, job creation, job recruitment, job development, both from within and from without. This is a very strong market, and whether we're attracting somebody in and telling them the 14th largest market, or a business that's located right here in downtown Bradenton that's thinking about what is their market and who can they serve from a 30-minute or an hour drive, this is the market, and this is a very strong market, and one that is growing. So this is the Tampa Bay region. The Tampa Bay Partnership is made up of businesses and economic development organizations from around the entire Tampa Bay region. You see some of the logos of some of the companies that support the Tampa Bay Partnership, but in the middle, that great area is that same map that I showed you of the 8 counties, and you can see the economic development organizations that make up the Tampa Bay Partnership. And in Manatee County, that of course is the Economic Development Council. And I just left Eric Basinger at an Enterprise Florida board meeting that we participated in, and we talked about economic development, talked about how we can work together locally, regionally, and at the state level. Our leadership is, and these are just our 3 leaders. Our current chair is John Schuler, who is the president and CEO of Media General here in the Florida market. Then that includes newspapers like the Tampa Tribune, News Channel 8, and TBO.com, and other publications that are produced as well. Vinnie Dolan is our vice chair, and he is president of Progress Energy. And also, when I talk about the regional business plan, he's been guiding this effort over the last year. And Chuck Sykes, who is our secretary-treasurer, owns a company, Sykes Enterprises, located in Tampa. A little bit about the Tampa Bay Partnership. We've been around since 1994, and I've been addressing groups in Bradenton and Manatee County since then. When we started in 1994, we were a regional marketer. We figured out how to promote the Tampa Bay region, but then we added to that, we looked at how can we convene on issues of regional importance. Things like water and transportation and education and workforce were issues that affected the business community and affected our economic development, our economic growth. Then we started to advocate for specific issues. How do we get more funding for transportation? How do we make sure we have an ample water supply? How do we make sure our educational institutions are strong, that the University of South Florida, for example, has the resources that it needs to grow in the entire region? And how do we make sure that we're working on the things that matter? Then we've become what we're looking at as a leader for regional prosperity. How do we set the stage for looking at where the jobs of the future are going to be? How can we get our economy back? How can we create prosperity that matters to our citizens and our residents and our businesses and our employees? And that little blue box, which is hard to read, it says, what's next? And really, we're in the next phase of a 3-year strategic plan where we're starting to talk about what's next. And when I get to the regional business plan, it'll help us understand what's next and where are we going. Let's talk a little bit about the economy. And we've all heard these stories of what the old reality of the economy was. It was about construction. It was about Florida as the Sunshine State, which it still is. It was about moving vans moving in as opposed to moving out. It's about our beautiful beaches, our natural environment. And just think about 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe, those of you who are running businesses or running governments and organizations, we couldn't find enough people to fill the jobs that we needed. We had a 3% unemployment rate here 5 years ago in the Tampa Bay region. The new reality is, as we've seen, our foreclosures affect us and continue to affect us. People are looking for jobs. We're challenged with how do we bridge that education gap, make sure that we have the workforce and the talent that we need. And our infrastructure, even in these challenging times, is still strained at the capacity. So economic development, whether we're a business, a local government, or an employee who benefits or a citizen who benefits from that, we've seen a major change in what our economy is about in the state and in this region. At the Tampa Bay Partnership, and in your packet I left you some information, there is a scorecard that we've been producing for the last 4 or 5 years. And that scorecard is measuring the good, the bad, the ugly, how do we do when it comes to economic development, and compare our region to other regions around the country, in particular Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, Jacksonville, Raleigh-Durham. And we look at employment, workforce, income, housing, innovation, education, and transportation as measures of economic vitality. When we first started the scorecard a few years ago, we ranked number 2 overall. And 1 is best. That's where you want to be, and that's where Raleigh-Durham is and has been for quite some time. Now you can see how we're at the lower levels of this ranking 5th in our latest scorecard, and our most recent scorecard will come out later this summer. And you can see how we got to that 5th ranking and what some of our challenges are. Employment, for example, we ranked 6th out of the 6 regions. Income and productivity, 6th out of 6. So we can begin to look to see where do we need to improve our economy, what do we need to do to get back into that 1st, 2nd, or 3rd spot that we want to be in. This is just a model that we work with at the Tampa Bay Partnership that talks about where do we see ourselves getting back to a prosperous environment. Well, it's about creating growth and making sure that there's growth outcomes that occur. Productive, inclusive, and sustainable growth. Productive growth is jobs, innovation, things we think about in economic development. But inclusive also says, how do we have the human talent? How do we make sure they're participating? The human capital, how do we make sure they're participating? How do we make sure that they're part of a prosperous economy? And sustainability is something that has many definitions to many people, but it's really, I think, one of our challenges. Because how do we make sure that we don't outstrip the resources that we have? How do we make sure we have sustainable growth? Not growth that goes up and down like this, but that sustains itself over time. There's nothing you can do about those blue boxes or the triangle at the top except to try to achieve that. But what you can look at is the drivers at the bottom, and that's what we at the Tampa Bay Partnership focus on. Things like innovation, human capital, infrastructure, quality places. So that's what we work on, that's what we worry about, that's what we think about every day. And that equates into 4 major missions that we have. Vision, building a regional vision for the Tampa Bay region. Many of you might have participated in the One Bay reality check, the Lego games. I think some of your heads are nodding. You remember that. Well, we now have a regional vision for how should we grow in the future. And where do we put the population? Where do we put the employment? How do we provide for that? How do we connect that up with transportation? We have a vision for where we're headed, and now we have to work towards that. But visioning at the regional level is very, very important, and frankly, not a lot of regions do it, and we're proud to say we're doing it. We connect the land use piece up with the transportation piece. We have a regional plan for transportation and how we connect our region together. So we have that vision, and that's the first thing you need to be able to take action. The second issue is jobs, and that's the regional business plan that I'm going to get to in a minute. Also, infrastructure is something that's important to us in the Tampa Bay Partnership, and many of you who get our emails might know that probably about this time last year we were saying, let's get started with building regional transit in one of our communities. It happened to be Hillsborough County, but it could have just as easily been Manatee or Sarasota, because we're serious about taking that vision and turning it into action and building a regional transportation system that's important. And then advocacy and leadership. How do we have the ability, the clout, to get things done? How do we make sure that you all, as leaders in the community, understand and see how all this connects with what you're trying to do in your community, and be able to say, how do we work together on that? You know, we have 25% of the legislative delegation in the 8 counties of Tampa Bay. 25% of the senators and House of Representatives in Tallahassee come from the Tampa Bay region. Just think if we put our heads together, as we have in the past when we established the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transportation Authority or secured funding for USF, think of what we can do if we work together and ask that legislative delegation for one unified ask. I think we could probably get it done pretty effectively. It certainly would have a very strong block. So that leadership that we need to be able to undertake these things is very important, and we work very hard at that as well, both at the public and the private sector level.